I'm Andy Parsons. I am the Senior Director of the Content Authenticity Initiative at Adobe. Technically, I'm a Senior Director of Engineering, and I oversee everything the Content Authenticity team does in terms of advocacy and outreach, open source implementations, the Content Credentials Standard in a standards organization that we co-founded a number of years ago, and of course, I oversee everything we do in Adobe tools like Photoshop, Lightroom, Premiere, and others. Good question. I think the answer is no, right? Adobe's always stood for empowering creators with incredible tools for creativity and technologies to empower that. As is always the case with great, powerful tools for good actors, in the wrong hands, these same tools can be used to deceive. And we've known that. I mean, it's no surprise that, as you well know, Jeff, the word Photoshop is often used synonymously with changes, which might be deceptive changes. Obviously at Adobe, we don't feel that way. These are tools for our constituents who are, making amazing films, documentaries, photojournalism every day. So we won't stop creating those powerful tools. And nowadays, some of them involve generative AI. But Firefly, for example, was trained with creators in mind. As you probably heard this morning, it's trained only on content that Adobe has specific exclusive access to use for this purpose. It doesn't crawl the open internet. So there's an ethical kind of underpinning about everything we do at Adobe, and that was actually one of the big drivers for the Content Authenticity Initiative 5 years ago. So I don't think anyone would imagine that the genie can be put in the bottle, but it kind of depends on how you characterize the genie. So it's important that we create these tools for our creators, but that we also do it in a responsible fashion. And Firefly is a good example of that, the content authenticity work. Yeah, so the Content Authenticity app, this new icon that we are announcing in private beta at Max, is the result of photographers asking us, how can I imbue my work with a credential that includes my identity? And when it comes to cameras that provide another kind of authenticity, which is this is a photo, this was not made by generative AI, we provide that as well in partnership with camera manufacturers like Leica and Nikon. In fact, the new Nikon Z6 III is on display in the booth downstairs today. And the kind of impetus for the Content Authenticity Initiative 5 years ago, almost exactly 5 years ago, it was announced at 2019 at Adobe Max by Scott Belsky on stage. And the idea was we have to provide a way for creators to get attribution for their work, but also for consumers of any kind of information, and specifically multimedia information, images, videos, text, documents, to be able to understand where it came from and what it is, sort of the DNA, or sometimes we call this a nutrition label. So we commenced building a standard called the C2PA. That's what's called the Standards Development Organization, or SDO, as a nonprofit, to put forward a technical standard that anyone could use for free. So that's not an Adobe product, it's truly an open standard. And we founded it in concert with the New York Times, the BBC. Now we enjoy the participation of Meta, Google, TruePic, OpenAI, Amazon, many others, and the BBC. And on top of that open standard, we're hearing a clarion call from Adobe creators to say, how can I put content credentials to use today? The easiest way is in a web browser. You don't even have to be a Creative Cloud subscriber to make use of the Content Authenticity app. And we're also launching alongside that a browser extension that allows anyone anywhere to see content credentials. Again, that nutrition label, if you want to know if something is a photo, if something is Gen AI, if it's a composite of Gen AI, or it's a photo that's been photoshopped and that Andy Parsons made that photo, that's all available through this app and through the deeper integrations that we have in Creative Cloud products. It is, actually. So the entire Lightroom ecosystem, either in preview, technical preview, or as a release product, for example, in Lightroom Web, content credentials is integrated deeply. So you'll see it in the UI. It's been shipping in Photoshop for over 2 years now. And you'll see it in other Creative Cloud apps and video apps as well. So, much of what we're debuting at Max are features that can benefit from content credentials, and they will. But it's not just Adobe. I want to make sure, there are Adobe products, and Adobe Content Authenticity is our product. But again, it's free. And I want to make sure it's clear to your viewers and your readers that we encourage a broad ecosystem, right? This is not an Adobe only play. Adobe can't solve these disinformation problems, attribution problems ourselves, which is why it's so important to have the entire content supply chain from cameras, mobile handset manufacturers, content management systems, DAM, asset managers, and platforms to encourage use of content credentials and support them on their platform. So whereas 5 years ago, we were one of 3 players, we founded the initiative with Twitter and the New York Times. Now we're one of dozens of members of the standard committee, and we sit alongside 3,700 members of the Content Authenticity Initiative who are focused on taking that standard and putting it to work in their products. I mean, I'm an information consumer like you are, like everyone is, and I think there are measures available. Content credentials is one of them that takes the idea of judging content for what it is and deciding whether it's trustworthy and puts it where I would say it belongs, which is in the hands of information consumers themselves. So I do have that concern. I think one of the reasons that we put out the browser extension to sort of reveal content credentials, no matter where they came from or where they are, is to make sure that they're available, whether or not a social media platform embraces them. But increasingly, the platforms are taking a lead in implementing content credentials on the viewer side. You can see them on LinkedIn now. Meta has done some early experimentation, and both Meta and Google are members of the C2PA and working closely alongside us. We'd love every social media company that agrees with our thrust to have content credentials available to consumers to join, and I would hope that X would be one of those.
Okay. Cool.
So you can get on the wait list today. The wait list is publicly open, and we're asking folks who are in attendance here with us at Adobe Max to sign up. And in Q1 of next year, we'll have our version of a public beta, which is available to anyone to use. So, I mean, whatever we release at Adobe does, by definition, have to pass through our rigorous process for quality. And aside from that, we want feedback from people. So the more feedback we get and the more we can hone this app to make it as good as it can be, the quicker we're going to go. But again, I'll remind you that this technology already exists in some of our desktop products and mobile products. So it's not our intent to wait to make the app perfect without servicing our constituents who want to do this. So we're doing both. And again, you'll see, for example, Google recently made an announcement about putting this into YouTube and Google Ads and Google Search. So in parallel with us working on this product, you'll see other companies putting it to work.
That's good.
I mean, look, we're not here to solve ethical problems in media, right? We're here to provide a foundation of transparency for people who want to show that transparency. This doesn't catch bad guys. This allows good actors who want to be known to be authentic, even if they're using AI. An authentic artist can make something that uses generative AI as part of their process. That's fine. A photojournalist probably shouldn't use generative AI as part of their process, but they might want to be transparent and held up to the high standards of their news organization by saying this is a photograph and it was edited. There's not much on the internet or anywhere else that doesn't go through some edits. Those are news photographs, but they don't have editorial edits. They have standard cropping and things that have been happening with news photos for years. They don't change the story. They change nothing editorial about what the story is meant to tell. So authentic storytelling is something that Content Credentials empowers. And we think that's critically important. Will it make a difference? This is where the nutrition label metaphor perhaps extends beyond its utility. Nutrition labels are long. They're legislated by law to contain lots of information that, you're right, most consumers don't care about. But there's some things you do care about, like maybe the sugar or the fat content. And you still might buy it, and that's the key, right? Nobody's legislating and saying it's unlawful for you to buy the sugary snack or feed it to your children. You can do that, but you have a fundamental right, I would say, to know what's in it. And that's where the metaphor works really well. So I do think it'll make a difference. We know that people share things that fit their worldview, even if they know that they're fake. We're not going to address that problem. That's a human behavior problem. That's beyond the scope of content credentials. But for those who want to know what something is before they share it, or understand for their own well-being whether it's factual or not, they should have that facility, and it should be one click or tap away.